You are listening to the Oracle of Light. I am your host, Shauna Demel, and today I have the lovely Courtney Dawson with me. Hello, I'm so excited that you're here.
So nice to connect with you, Shauna. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh my gosh, I just, I always tell people I go down the rabbit hole on Instagram and I'm like, who are these fabulous people? I need to be in touch with these fabulous people. This is amazing. And the fact that you are also a medium, you are a mentor, you are also a life coach. It was like, oh my gosh, we could probably talk for 6 hours straight and not cover all
Definitely.
of it, right?
Definitely. And you and I actually have some similarities with our with the loss of a child as well. So there's some other commonalities that we have too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we will talk about that. So I would just love to know, tell us about your world. Tell us, how did this start? Where did it start? What did it look like? I would love for you to share your story with our listeners.
Okay. Well, it started, I'm not exactly sure when, to be honest with you. I've had an awareness of the spirit world and psychic phenomena as long as I can remember. My earliest recollection, Shauna, I was about 3 years old, and I was out in my backyard with my mom, and we had a wooden swing set, and she was pushing me on it. In the backyard, we had a really tall wooden fence, and I could see a shadow figure, but how I could tune in and identify who he was, I mean, at 3 years old, I'm not sure. But I did have a really good vocabulary when I was three, and I was already starting to read. So the vocabulary was there to describe. And I remember telling my mom, this individual, this man is here and gave information. She had no idea who he was, but yet there was something within her that goes, okay, my kid's actually seeing something. What the heck is going on? And I just had so many different experiences, Shauna. And to be honest, not all of them were positive. And there's a lot of people in the spiritualist community, and I am a spiritualist minister, that don't believe that there's negative energy or entities, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I have had the privilege of having encounters with that realm. And so for me, it is a lived experience. So it's my truth having that knowledge. And honestly, some of them are pretty nasty, instilled a lot of fear within me. And so throughout like my childhood, even into my teens, I really did what I could, like tried my hardest, Shauna, to really suppress those abilities. Because when you're tuning into things that other people can't see, especially if there's fear associated with it, it can cause a lot of anxiety. It can cause depression. It can cause, eating disorders. It can cause sleep issues. It is this ball that just kind of spins out of control and you're caught up in it.
Yes.
And at that time, I honestly didn't have really anybody I could talk to about Shauna because my family was very devout Christians, and I grew up in the church. My parents were elders in the church. And so there was always this awareness of light and dark, angels, demons. I'm not sure if I like the term demons, but I mean, based on the doctrine and the dogma that I was raised, that was the language that I had at that time. And I was scared as hell, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And then I had some pretty incredible experiences at 18 years old when I had a stillborn. And then it just kind of triggered some more stuff, having direct communication with my child, and then just always having this inner knowing of things that were going to happen. So, definitely, really kind of a blend of the psychic and the mediumistic abilities working often like simultaneously, sometimes in different. Separately, right? And in different circumstances, one would kind of pop out more than the other. And honestly, it wasn't until I was probably in my early 30s that I was ready. I just gone through a divorce. I was in this complete identity crisis. I've gone from being a wife to now I'm a divorcee. I'm a mother of two, and what I need to relook at my life. And through that, these abilities just started to resurface. And I started attending some classes, doing Reiki, and then the connection with spirit was just so, so strong that I knew I needed to explore more. And then one day was at a friend's house, and their brother, somebody who actually babysat when he was little, he had passed. And they went to this, they called it a church in a local city here. And they said there's some mediums on a stage giving readings. I thought, oh my God, what kind of circus are you guys going to? Literally, that's what I thought, right? Here are these people like running towards their abilities, and then there's me, hightailing it the other direction. Like, these guys are like, they're crazy. What are you doing? But there was something in their story that really resonated with me. And I can't even pinpoint it or identify it, Shauna, but something felt right. What that was, I don't know, but something felt right. And then it was just this process of discovery, self-exploration, discovery of things unseen. And I was too scared, honestly, to ask them what the name of the place was. But the spirit world kept saying, you need to go check out this place, check out this place. And I go, why? And each month I kept ignoring it, and then it got stronger and stronger. So I started Googling, trying to figure out what this place was, what it was, where it is, all of that. So I ended up making plans to go to a message night, which is a demonstration of mediumship that they do on the platform. And I didn't want to go alone. So I told my girlfriend. She's like, oh yeah, I've been there like 4 or 5 times. It's great. I go, whoa, wait a minute. You didn't tell me that. So we went, and I had profound experiences that I'd love to put in a book one day. Profound experiences that completely changed the course of my trajectory in life forever.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. Yes, you definitely need to put that in a book. Absolutely.
For time's sake of the show, I won't go into all the details, but there was a lot of direct communication with the spirit world. There was some physical psychic phenomena that was taking place, seeing spirit objectively and hearing them clairaudiently. It was like the floodgates just opened, and it was this power that flew through me that I couldn't stop. And then, when we start developing our abilities, it's almost like a spiritual high you get off it, but then you don't really know what it means, what to do. And you're kind of caught up in it. And then I go, well, hold on, let's put the brakes on it. Let's talk to somebody. Let's get some information. And then let's actually start developing. And I always knew that I wanted to develop, but I wanted to be disciplined from the start, because I've seen a lot of sketchy people, psychics / mediums / healers / readers, whatever label they use. And I go, oh my God, I would never want to be described as somebody like that.
Right.
And that's been my path, my mission, my sole purpose, to do the work with integrity.
I love that. And similar, when my ability started to, start to percolate again and start to wake up again, I thought, okay, if I'm doing this, we're doing this right. So I'm a stickler, when I'm teaching and talking about mediumship, I'm like, there are foundational pieces. There are, this is how you create sacred space. There are boundaries. It's like, no, this is what we're doing. Like, it's funny. There was a woman that reached out a few weeks ago, and she said, I had a reading with another medium, but she'd like smoked weed before our session. So I'm kind of not sure about some of the things that she said. And I said, wow, okay. I said, please don't tell me her name. I said, I would love to work with you, but it's just, and same thing, and I think this is another similarity that we have, is that this work is sacred. And
definitely,
I have the utmost respect for it, and I'm blessed. And it's just, it's an incredible thing to experience. And I also love that you talked about, entities and demons. And, I had the nickname of the cleaner here in Calgary. It was like, oh, there's, psychic phenomenon. We have to call Shauna. Ooh. And, people would start saying, you're like a Ghostbuster. And I'm like, yes, I am. I said, and I tell people all the time, it's like the movie Ghost. I mean, there are these, not darker or evil energies, but they're just a lower vibration. And are they on the planet? Yep. And do we put focus on them? No. But I mean, if we just having the awareness of it is all you need. And it's true. I've run into people too, where they've said, I'm a demon because of what I do. And it's like, wow. Yeah. Lots of ideas around that. And I find that people that come at me like that, there's usually a grief, a loss that they haven't processed. There's also, there could be stuff that happened in their childhood that they don't understand. So it's just, I find the whole thing is just fascinating. And it's just so nice to connect and, sort of share what this looks like to people. And I love having other mediums on as well, because people hear it from me and they're like, so what? this is your experience, but then to have someone else on, it's like, no, this is really what happens. This is really what happens. And now,
Absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I actually grew up in a Christian church, and for a time I went to a private Christian school. And so the dogma, the doctrine, the creed, it was really ingrained within me. And to be honest, I really, really struggled with having that awareness, thinking, and that's where a lot of the fear base came from, was from the doctrine, the teachings of the church. And it wasn't until I got serious about sitting in a development circle and getting that knowledge that the fear was released, the fear was removed. And I feel when people are scared about connecting with the spirit world, even connecting with their loved ones in spirit, oh my God, one, am I waking the dead? Two, is it an evil spirit pretending to be my loved one? All that kind of garbage, right?
Yep.
And they don't recognize that it's garbage because they don't have anything else to form a basis of understanding on it, right? And it's like, no, hold the train, hold the train.
Yeah.
So if we look at, even Jesus, he was one of the world's probably best mediums. He
Mhm.
saw angels, he communicated them. He was an incredible healer.
Yes.
And then if we look at the church, what did they do? They shut him down
Mhm.
because he was letting people know, hey, you guys can connect with source energy. You can connect with angels by yourself. You don't have to go to a building. You don't have to tithe in order to get approval from the church. And then, you're sanctified. It's none of that. So
No.
it's all this stuff that's been going on for thousands of years. And of course, we know it gets passed down. Anyways, I love comparative religion. That's one of my things. And I really enjoyed in my ministry training, but it actually is applicable to now where people are more aware of, okay, there's actually mediums and psychics around here. And there's almost like this normalizing of it, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Oh, it totally
And
is. Yeah.
and then there's still some of that trepidation. And a lot of it comes from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And it's just stuff that's been passed down because people haven't allowed themselves to think freely.
No, right. And it's so true. I mean, I was raised Catholic. So same thing. It was, the first time I saw our neighbor in the backyard, I said, Mom, there's Mr. Barry. Mom, he's not wearing glasses. Mom, there's Mr. Barry. Do you see him, Mom? And she was just like, she was mortified. She's like, what's wrong with you? And then I didn't get dinner for a couple of nights because we didn't have TV shows. We didn't talk about it. We didn't,
Yeah.
it was the work of the devil. It wasn't what we did. And, I again shifted, when I graduated high school, it was like, and we're done with Catholicism. I respect
Yeah.
it. If that's your jam, I absolutely respect it. Don't try to push it on me. Don't try to convince me. You do you, I do me. And it was interesting because a lot of people were just like, this is crazy. Like, how do you know that? I say to them all, how do you know you're breathing oxygen? Did you go to Costco? Did you load up? Like, how do you know that you're breathing it? And I said, I say to people, this is an invitation. This is an invitation for more. And if it resonates, run with it. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Right?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I get a lot of people from all over North America, primarily, that are coming for tutorship, mentorship. And it's interesting where people think that, okay, if I want to learn about mediumship, then I'm opening a door and I don't know what's coming in. And this is where practicing discernment is so important. We should be practicing that in our day to day life, anyways.
Right.
But getting into a circle or taking classes, you're not opening in a door, you're opening up your awareness. You're allowing yourself to open up to that knowledge that is already latent and implanted within the soul that resides within your physical body. So, mediumship is more about a discovery of self and allowing yourself to be aware that there are things beyond your five senses and that it is so natural, just like as you said, Shauna, breathing air. There's nothing mystical or mysterious about communication. And definitely in my work with my students and in my private sittings and on my show, I like to normalize those conversations because it is a sacred craft. It's something that's so sacred that I treasure, and I am so honored every time I can work with the spirit. But I recognize too, and I let people know, anybody can learn mediumship. Doesn't mean you have to start going slinging readings and put a sign up and start doing it for work. But no, it can help you one, connect with your own loved ones, help you through your grieving process. It can help inspire you to live your life to the fullest, because we recognize there's no such thing as death. And if we're not afraid of death, then we shouldn't have a fear of living.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. And I always tell people, your loved ones on the other side are 1000% alive in spirit. They just don't have their physical form anymore, but they're still a part of your life. They're still a part of your world. And, this, not that it scares people, but I always tell them, when you're out and about with your day and you randomly think of your loved one, that's them. And people are like, oh, what? And it's just, and same thing. I always tell people, you do not need to be a medium. You don't need to see a medium to connect with your loved ones on the other side. Sometimes it's easier because we don't have the emotions. We're not connected to it. We're not in it. We have the bird's eye view, and, we're neutral, and we can just bring it through. And, it's interesting too, because I tell people, when I teach, I start with, making that connection with your spirit, because you, at first and foremost, you are a spirit, and you have that spiritual connection with your spirit, your soul, whatever that looks like. And that's where we start. It's not, I said, because if you don't have a connection with you and then you're trying to connect with them, I don't know, that could be a little crazy. And again, I love the foundational pieces. There are a lot of people, like any industry, there are a lot of people that maybe haven't embodied it. Perhaps they haven't truly connected in with their soul and their purpose. And, it could be, a myriad of different reasons. But, I find the same thing. I'm often debunking stuff. People are asking me questions all the time. And it's like, no, and again, they'll say to me, well, how do you know? Well, I've been doing this long enough to I know. And again, after connecting with Jack, my son Jack on the other side, that was a game changer. And I love what you said, when we make that connection, there's an opportunity to bring so much beauty into our world from making that connection. And for me, the biggest piece was healing. Connecting with him again on the other side was helping me to facilitate, I can heal my broken heart now. I know where he is. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful connection. And I just love to open people up to the possibility. It's like, like our loved ones are marinating in an unconditional love. And when we connect into that, guess what? We are connecting to that, and we can bring that into our world. So it's, a little slice of heaven on earth, really. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And in order for mediumship to even be facilitated, there has to be a love bond between the two people. And a lot of people, I get comments or questions about, well, if I open up, is something scary going to come through? I'm like, well, no, because your loved ones, and I need to trademark this because I say it probably every day. Your loved ones are still people without bodies.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
They are. They have not changed, but of course they have the opportunity to grow and heal and work through some of the stuff that they haven't on the earth plane. And that's my understanding, but it doesn't mean that they're in a state of trauma or they're in fear or they're in physical pain. We know that. But there has to be that love essence in order for mediumship to even be facilitated. So for that information alone should remove the fear of even going to have a mediumship reading with the intention of wanting to connect with your loved ones. And mediumship at its core, Shauna, I believe, is all about healing. It is about comforting the bereaved. It is about also bringing healing to those in the spirit world, because maybe they didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye to those loved ones that are still in the physical. Of course, they want to say goodbye. Doesn't mean that they're not, they're not around, or they're still around. So that we need to, it doesn't matter that there is an absence of closure. No, they still need to have that. And also for our loved ones to know that we still welcome them and we're aware that their presence is still influencing us today, just like it always has. And that death is not a door that's closed forever. It's merely a continuation on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And same thing, like I always tell people, your loved ones are still very much a part of your life. They know when they're babies, they know that they're at the birthday parties, they're at your Christmas birthday, like they are still so much a part of your life. And, when we can make that connection, and, it's part of the work that I do then is, I help facilitate, the healing and the grief and the loss and everything that comes with. And then we, when that person is able to accept that this is what's happened, and then we start to reclaim parts of us and we start to rebuild that new life and finding that purpose in life again and finding that meaning in life again. And like I said, if I hadn't connected with, well, at first it was my grandparents. My grandparents had transitioned. And I think I shared this with you. I saw spirit from early back, as far back as I can remember. And I called them the see-through people. I was like, they're see-through people. Don't you see them? And it was like, nobody else saw what I saw. And then my grandparents started coming in, and there was a medium that I saw probably 20 years ago. And she's like, there's a woman here and she keeps like smiling and she keeps clicking her teeth and she's laughing. And I'm like, what? Oh, my grandmother. She was so excited. She was from Newfoundland and they didn't have dental plans back then. So when she came to Calgary to live with us, she had all of her teeth done. And she used to always walk around with this big grin, and she was like, she would pretend to bite people. She was so excited that she had teeth. I know. So as soon as she said that about the teeth, I thought, oh, good God, she's connecting with my grandmother. And so it was interesting because they started to come through first. Yeah. And I always tell people, you know what? Take what resonates and leave the rest. If this doesn't resonate with you, swipe left. This isn't for you. That's okay. Right. Like but I find that more people are curious. Like, I think it's like half and half. Half the people that hear about what I do, they're terrified or they're throwing stuff at me. And the other half are like, can I tell you about a dream? And I get signs all the time and I communicate with them. And so it's this whole realm of possibility. And, same thing, I had panic attacks and I had anxiety and I couldn't go to restaurants. And it was so crazy. And then I realized, oh, well, it's because I'm aware of spirit energy. Oh, okay. So this is
100%, 100%. I get a lot of people. Actually just have a new student I'm working with, and she has had the racing heart, the clammy hands, severe anxiety. So we start talking. Well, she definitely has these mediumistic powers of awareness. She just doesn't understand them. And that's the value of mentorship and training, because then you can understand what's actually happening.
Yes.
And very quickly, I tuned in. There's so many people around her in spirit. And I gave her pieces of evidence that validated some of the experiences that they told me. And she goes, oh, yeah. And I said, and this happened. And then your body responded. Yes, you were doing this. And then this happened. Yes, you were out here or doing this. And then this is how you responded. Yeah. I'm like, it makes sense. Think of us like a cell phone tower, and then we've got all these signals coming out. Well, we have all these like little tentacles. We're picking up on everything. Yes. And there's things we can do to become less sensitive when we're not wanting to be opening and connecting. And I just find it so fascinating. But what you mentioned about your grandma is something I feel is really, really important. There's so many different types of mediumship. Yep. There is inspirational mediumship where we just kind of let spirit channel. Then there's entertainment mediumship where we see a lot of it. There's some other stuff, honestly, I don't even know what you'd call it. I wouldn't even call it mediumship. Some of it I honestly just think is trash because it doesn't bring proof of survival. It is not comforting the bereaved. And really it kind of borders on cold reading and psychic work. And there's nothing wrong with psychic, but it is not the same as mediumship. No. Evidential mediumship is a style I work with. Everyone's got their own gig and how they work is cool. But the value of evidential mediumship is that we're going to work with spirit, the medium, and we want to bring through pieces of information that defy logic. Pieces of information somebody isn't going to be able to find on your Facebook page or Googling
yes,
any of that, right?
Yep.
And I feel when you can bring in that type of evidence, and I believe that we need to be at least 95% accurate in all of our readings. Otherwise, it's open to interpretation on the recipient on what you actually mean. But when you can have like one piece of information, I did a reading, it was maybe a month ago with this one client, and her husband had passed to the spirit, brought through characteristics, personality. She's like, yep, that sounds like him. But then he's like, I want to talk about the tamales that you made yesterday. And he even talked about ingredients that were put in it, showed me a Mexican flag. She's like, oh my God. Turns out Mexican family, part of that, they did make the tamales. And then he was giving her heck for all the stuff she stuffed under the bed because he was a clean freak. She hadn't cleaned stuff. She was just shoving it under the bed. And her face dropped. She's like, now I know that you are talking to my husband, right?
Exactly.
And that's the difference between education, I'll say entertainment, where, oh, I've got a mother figure here. Who's the mother figure that passed from a heart
Yes. Like all the fishing questions, we call them fishing
Oh,
questions.
yeah.
It's like, no, it's, and I work differently too with people, because I'll say to them, they'll say, well, who's here? Well, I can connect to 50 of them. Who do you want to talk to? And then it's like, tell me, who would you like to connect with? And then they come through, and then same thing. I tell them, you got to give me stuff so they know exactly who I'm talking to, because we're working
Definitely.
together here. So let's make this, it's like validating it for them. It's like, what is the point of, you're right. Like there was somebody I watched on TV. I don't remember who it was. This was years ago, but it was like, he would say something and then the people would just start talking. Oh yeah. And this and this and this and this. And then they would talk for 10 minutes, and then he would share another little snippet, and then they would talk. And at the end of it, he said to them, so how did your loved one die? Can you tell me? And it was like, what, that's, to me, that's not mediumship. To me, that is, I don't even know what you call that. Like you said, it was just like, okay, mediumship is giving evidence and proof of, that there is life after what we're here in the physical experiencing, and that, it's validating, it's healing, it's, like you said, having that last conversation, being able to say whatever it is that you need to say. It can be closure, it can be growth, it can be so many things. And it's so true with that, right? Because it's just, yeah, I hear you, because it's just like, and when you get somebody sitting in front of you and they're kind of like, what you got? And I'm like, let's go, let's do this. Give me something to open this up. And to me, it could be something that doesn't make sense, but we have to say it. It's like, okay, I don't know what this is, but it's coming at you. Here you go. It's like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just depending on how you've been trained, give what you get. But then I've been also with mentors where they say you need to know what you're giving so it makes sense to the recipient. I kind of fall in the middle because I could say, oh, I see a cloud. Big deal.
big deal.
Okay. And then what I'd say to a client, I don't want to be the medium that would say to a client, and so how do you connect with clouds? No, no, it doesn't work.
No.
And then I would ask spirit, okay, or get them to share with me, what does that actually mean? How is this applicable to the recipient or your loved one?
Yes.
And it's their communication. I'm just the storyteller of someone else's story. So I just need to be relaxed, neutral, and allow them to work through me. And I just pass it along. I usually tell clients, I'm like the post lady. I deliver the messages. I don't know who the sender is. I don't know what they're writing, but if I can stay really kind of calm and relaxed, we can sort that out for you.
Yes, exactly. I always tell people that too. Like, I'm like the phone. I'm just listening to what they're telling me and I'm relaying it to you. And I say, I tell people my lingo may sound different, and sometimes what I'm hearing sounds really different. I said, but you know what? It's coming in. And same thing. It's like, what's the point of, what is the point of saying, there's a mother figure, who is that? Whereas, there's a mother figure who died of cancer. And that's, sometimes in the group sessions, it's like, okay, who are you connected to? And okay, you're over here. It's like, okay, let's figure out who's connected to who, and let's figure out what they need to hear, what will make the most difference. And, it's really quite fascinating. There was a medium I saw years ago. She was doing like a big group event. There must have been, I want to say like 200 people. And she came out and she would stand there and she would say, okay, just a sec. They're all yelling. Just a minute. Let me see what I can get. Okay, hang on. They're all yelling. Okay. So there's somebody over here, your father. Okay, hang on. They're yelling. And it was interesting because with my training, it's like, no, we're working together. So I like one to come through. Then we can have another come through if it's two at a time. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we don't open the floodgates, because I always tell people, and again, I work differently. I'm like, who do you want to connect with? And oftentimes it's, what, this child is here, your son is here, this is who's here. Let's start there. Because I tell them, what, we all have like an Aunt Edna who will just get the talking stick and she'll talk for no reason. And there's no value, there's no healing, there's no beautiful message. She just wants to talk for the sake of talking. And I said, so we want Aunt Edna to maybe come in at another time. So today we want someone to come in that you'd really like to connect with, like a recent loss, or, the people that I work with, they had miscarriage, they've lost a child. And so it's whatever they're needing in that moment. And like, I just show up. I'm like, and it's funny. I always tell people, on my client days, I eat different. I meditate twice a day. I pretty quiet, pretty chill around the house. I'm just getting my energy, aligned so that I can be in service and be the best channel I can be. Yeah.
Absolutely, because our mental state, our emotional state certainly affects our mediumship. And so
Yes.
we want to be clear channels for the spirit world, and that's where the spiritualization of self becomes so important, because
Yes.
if we got a whole bunch of crap we haven't healed and resolved, and then we want to bring through clear, accurate, and specific information from the spirit world, we're going to have a hell of a time doing it because we're so clogged up. And
Yeah.
then that affects our filters and in which we actually perceive the information from the spirit, and
Yeah.
it can completely change the context of it as well. And there's a lot that people don't understand about,
Mm.
mediumship. They think, okay, I want to be able to connect with spirit. They don't understand the contact that you make with the spirit world is a byproduct of everything else that you do outside of your private sitting or your practice.
Yeah. It totally.
And
Yep.
yeah, and it becomes a lifestyle.
It is. It's totally a lifestyle. Like it's people are always, they'll say to me, so, I call it the first hour I'm up in the morning. I call it my power hour. So I drink water and I do some stretching and I'm journaling and I'm meditating and I'm thinking about my day and whatever I'm doing. And sometimes I'll have a latte. I call it lattes with loved ones. And then my son Jack comes in and just it's setting that intention. And a lot of people are just like, no, what's the big deal with meditating? And it's like, well, I've meditated for hundreds of thousands of hours. I said, it's the cornerstone of being a clear channel, like you said, and then when I became a Reiki master, it was, whoa, that brought it up a notch, right? Like, it's like Reiki's
Yeah.
like a rooter going through, chewing up stuff. And, after I lost Jack, I took 6 months, I took a 6-month break because I couldn't stay neutral. I would just sit in a session. And if I was reading for somebody that lost a child, I would be like, oh God, like I couldn't keep my emotions out of it because it was so raw still. And recognizing that, like I had, there was one coach that said, she's like, who cares? Just trust that they'll get what they need. And I said, I choose to show up as the best version of me. This is my calling. This is who I am. Like I said, I'm not going to show up and half-ass it. I'm going to show up to the best of my ability. And this is real for me. This isn't just, charlatan with a glass ball on a corner, give me $5 and I'll tell you what the lottery numbers are. And that's another thing too. And it's interesting because, we have our psychic abilities, and people that are psychic typically are not mediums, but mediums have both running. And so there have been a lot of mediums that I've had readings from where it was just psychic information. I had one lady tell me, oh, your grandfather's here. Oh, he loved being on the trains. It was lovely. And she told this whole story for about 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, who is she talking to? It's like, I don't know what trains are. There's no, like there was nothing that connected. It was like interesting, but she was good on the psychic piece. She's like, yeah, this is going to happen and that happened. And it was like, whoa. And everybody has their own gift, their own flavor, like it's just, and what lights them up. Like, working with mothers who have lost children, that doesn't light up everybody. That isn't everybody's jam. Right. Mm-hmm.
Totally. And the comment about the person reading psychically and thinking they're mediumistic.
Yeah.
I actually see that a lot, Shauna.
Yes. Same.
And
Same.
it's for me, it's a red flag that they don't have proper training.
Yep.
And they obviously don't even know themselves, because if they did, they would recognize what their energy feels like so they could differentiate between somebody else's.
Yep.
And there is a difference between the psychic and the medium, and they both have a place. They both have a purpose, and they're both beautiful. But, here's another thing too I actually learned when I was at the Arthur Findlay College in England is some people, they think they're working mediumistically, but they're actually not. They are reading the auric field of the recipient, and within the auric field contains all of your memories, your emotions connected to dead people. And I hate that term, but just for some people that don't understand the term, like discarnate or spirit people, all of that information is within the auric field. They can actually tune into it.
Yep, it is. It's true, right? Like it was just like there was there was a lady that I read for, this is years ago, and at the end of her session she said, that was wow. She said that wow. She said, is that what mediumship is? I said, I'm just relaying, like, she's like, how do you know that? I said, because they're telling me. And she's just like, but I've had other mediumship readings before and they don't touch on those things. And I said, you know what, mediumship, like I could read, it's like a Rubik's Cube. I might read blue that day. Courtney may be reading red. I said, neither's right, neither's wrong. It's just how we are interpreting the energy. It's how our gifts work. It's how strong the connection is from the other side. That's another thing I like to tell people. Like if your mom was a really soft talker, sometimes I'm like, can you turn up the volume a little bit, please? And for me, it's the personalities that will usually come through. And that's a lot of how they know who I'm talking to. So it's like, okay, there's a big personality coming through. And it's so true, right? And I love that we're having this conversation because it's like, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability.
Definitely.
Just, get the training. I mean, I trained with Sylvia Brown. I've trained with Sonia Chiquette. I've trained with so many different people around the world, same thing. And it's just like, no, I want to train with people who understand it, who have done their inner work, who can bring, their best version of themselves to the table. Because it's just, and then it's funny because years ago I used to do parties, and I'm starting, my guides are like, just call them group events now. I'm like, okay. But I'm a stickler. I'm like, no recreational drugs or alcohol before your session, 24 hours before. And, and it was funny because I did this one party years ago, and one of the women, like, there was nothing coming through. I'm just kind of like there were no loved ones, like there was nothing coming through. And then she kind of giggled and she said, I was so nervous that I had a glass of wine. I said, okay, so I'm going to give you your money back, because that isn't how this works. And so it's really quite fascinating. And I've met a lot of mediums, in and around where I live, who smoke pot, who drink. They'll sit and drink with the people before they give readings. And it's like, what? Or they vape. Oh, that was the best one. There was a woman that I heard about, a client. She said, do you vape? I said, no. And she's like, okay, well, I just had a reading last week with a woman and she was vaping. And I said, huh, interesting. Okay. I said, so bringing that into your energy field is going to cloud the information. So she may be 20% accurate. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to pay somebody if they're 20%. I'd rather pay for my nice high numbers, because I know that it's authentic, and I know that they're walking their talk. They're talking their walk.
Yeah, totally. I'm the same with as you, Shauna. So I do group events, and I actually have a brochure that's on my website, tells them exactly what to expect, how I work.
Yep.
I will not read for people that are under the influence of drugs or alcohol or even heavy prescription medicine, because it alters their energy. And I remember working at doing an event at the spiritualist church I was a minister out of, and sitting at my particular table, they bring people in, 15-minute readings. And this one lady sat down, and I tuned in, and my solar plexus went, ooh, like it was yucky.
Yep.
And then as I'm tuning into the client, the auric field was jagged. It was all messed up. And I just said, and then I said, I can't do this. And then I got a whiff of the booze, and I go, that makes sense. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to read for you. Please go to the front and get a refund.
Yep.
And this is where, we can have events and promote mediumship, because everybody is going to benefit from mediumship, or can benefit from mediumship at one time in their life, because we're all going to experience death.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's just a fact of life. But those of us that are in this work need to represent it properly and with integrity, because we are ambassadors for the spirit world. We are a voice for the spirit, and we want to do so with the intention that we want to be the best we can be and bring through the clearest information. And I think about, if I'm dead on the other side, do I only want to have an option of coming through somebody that's high, intoxicated, under the influence, and really just has a lot of emotional trauma that they're carrying around in a bag? Heck no.
No.
I want to go through somebody who's got it together, knows what they're doing, understands the mechanics of the mediumship, so that they're going to be able to pick up on exactly what I mean and be able to convey it with accuracy to my loved one. So then my loved one knows I'm still here. I'm not in a grave. I'm not in an urn. And we got to think of it that way too. We're giving voice to those that don't have a physical voice anymore. And there's such a responsibility that comes with that. And then there's mediums who want to do the parties, which that's okay. But I feel the setting is important, because it's not a novelty. It is not an event, or it's not a novelty. That's all I can say. It's not something you're going to go to the circus or the flea market at. I remember growing up, Shauna, we used to go to the flea market. It's a huge one. There's still one actually close to my house.
Yeah.
It's massive. And there would always be a lady in the corner who had a big table with a crystal ball. She'd read palms. And she had the whole getup with like the little bandana, the big hoops, the crazy clothing.
Yep.
I just thought, oh my, it just something was off-putting about that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And if we want to be able to touch more hearts and assist with healing on both sides of the veil, we need to show up properly.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyways, I could go on forever about that, Shauna.
Oh, I know. I could too. There was, this was years ago, years and years ago. I had a few clients that came through and said, oh my God, there's this reader. You have to go see her. And I said, oh, okay, wow. And I was curious. It was like, I would love to connect with, my loved ones. That's awesome. Yeah. It'd be, it's kind of fun. It's like, okay, let's see what we get. And she was reading rocks. So she had like rocks that she brought in from, like, they look like river rocks. And then she had a few like gemstones kind of mixed in. And she's like, okay, pick your rocks. And I was like, okay. So I pick my rocks. And then she starts, it's like she's channeling whatever it is through these rocks. And absolutely nothing made sense. It was like, wow, that's fascinating. Like, it was just so interesting. And it was like, I'm always curious to see how other people are doing it. And, I'm a lifelong learner and I can't know everything. And so it's just, I'm always open to the possibilities. And I just remember that thinking, that's really interesting. And a lot of the work that I do, and you as well, a lot of the work that I do is healing. So if you come to see me for a session or you take a class, you will have an emotional release at some point. Like, you're stepping into an arena with higher vibrations, these different energies. And again, it's unconditional love. There was a woman that I read for years ago, and her father came in, and as soon as the energy came in and just sort of wrapped around her, she started crying. And I said, that's it, right? And now, you had mentioned something on your, if it was on your Instagram or on your website about, and I just wanted to touch on this, is about how to get realigned with your soul. I love this because I think this is so important, as you were mentioning earlier. I mean, if somebody's, high, if they're using drugs, and, if they're drinking, if, they've got a lot of turmoil in their world, that's going to impact that alignment, if you will. And so would you share a little bit about, how do you get realigned with your soul? What does that look like?
So getting realigned with your soul can look different for everybody. So my first recommendation is that people take the time to actually get to know who they are, because so many people have been influenced by their family and their upbringing, told this is what you need to do, this is who you should be, and this is how you should execute that. And they live by the opinions of others, but neglecting that inner voice within that is always guiding, leading, and inspiring them. And so I believe that when people are experiencing turbulence in their life, that's part of the human experience. That's where we learn and we grow. But if it's happening on a regular basis where things just seem to be working against you, that's a very clear sign, in my opinion, that something is off. So there's a misalignment. So I like to go, halt the brakes, take a moment. Even if you could spend 5 minutes sitting in a chair, don't even have your phone on and in the room. Make sure you're somewhere where you won't be disturbed. And if that has to be in the car, bathroom stall, don't matter, because I've done that a few times, believe me.
Oh, yes.
Wherever is accessible.
Yep.
And take that moment and just breathe. Follow the breath as it moves in and out, literally watching it move in and out through the body, and do that for a minute or so, just to allow a feeling of stillness to settle in. And then invite your soul to step forward and feel it as you invite it to step forward. Move into the center of your heart chest, the chest heart space. Feel into that space. And what are you feeling? At first, I really believe that we need to connect with our feelings, because our feelings is the language of the soul. Mediumship in itself, again, is all about the language of feeling. We might get clairaudience and clairvoyance, but without the clairsentience, the feeling, the emotional connection, we're not going to have any context to it. So invite that soul to step forward, connect with those feelings, and then start journaling. It may not even make sense to you. And then take a look, reflect on the certain, conditions in your life right now that are just not working for you. And I like people to identify. Most people always have the reasons why things aren't working out. They just don't like to acknowledge it or take personal responsibility for the part that they played.
Yes. Yes.
And so we need to get really honest with ourselves, and it's uncomfortable and it's called growing pains. But just starting there, have an awareness of what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Look at the situations in your life that aren't working and see what part you play in it. Because other people, they may be part of the play, but yet you choose how you show up and interact with them. You choose how you respond to them. And if people lack emotional control over themselves and the situations that they experience in life, that is where they need to develop discipline of self. And that is going to come through developing a practice. Perhaps that is breath work, meditation, journaling, yoga, exercising. Where it's all those practices, all those things that I mentioned, Shauna, are about returning to self, about bringing ourselves into a state of centeredness. And then from there, there's little subtle shifts that begin to take place. And the parts of us that no longer serve us begin to fall away. And when that takes place, our outer world begins to look different. We begin to talk different, feel different. We begin to develop compassion and love for ourselves. We then have different people that come into our life. We have people that start to fall to the wayside. We end up leaving careers that we really hated in the first place, where we've been mistreated. Health issues can begin to subside. I know this all firsthand because I went through a really crappy divorce. I had a really turbulent marriage, and I was a really angry person. And all of that anger was stemmed in fear and sadness. All of that. I had to work through that. And sometimes we have to work through that stuff on our own. It's okay. Sometimes we need the help of a friend, a mentor, a minister, a therapist, whatever, whoever that is, to help you process some of that stuff. But the first place is always starting within. And then you can have other people that can assist you with working through another layer. And it's a process. And when we can allow ourselves to move through that process, we're going to hear the voice of our soul so much more clearly. We're going to show up with confidence. We're going to show up with certainty. We're going to show up differently in life than we ever have before. And our world then just starts to align. And then we have choices that come our way. And through the gift of free will and our intuition, we can decide, I know that I need to do this. This is the right choice for me because it feels right. It doesn't matter what mom, dad, spouse, coworkers, anybody else says. What's right for us? What's right for me? And we've got to stop people pleasing too.
Oh, huge, right? Huge. And I'm that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It was I'm finding in the last couple of weeks in my practice, I'm sure you find this as well. It's all about boundaries. It's like,
oh my God, yes.
It's like, okay, it's about boundaries. And as you were mentioning, what I find is that I find that not everyone wants to grow. I mean, and not that I'm looking for people that want to grow at the level that I want to grow, because I kind of geek out on personal growth stuff. And I'm like, ooh, what else is in there? Let's see. And it's like, Louise, hey, I always think, life is happening for me. It's not happening to me. I don't have to react, let's have a look at this. And like you said, I've actually seen some of those chunks kind of fall away. It's like when a rocket takes off and there's a big chunk that falls away. It's like, whoa, what was that? And then recalibrating to that new vibration. And so it's interesting because it's just like, it's like it's almost like people are saying things or doing things, and they're facilitating their own movement away from my reality. It's like, what is going on? Because it's, again, setting that intention that, is it gratitude? Is it love? Is it compassion? Is it forgiveness? Those are the cornerstone of what I like to, surround myself with. And yeah, I have moments where I'm in traffic or whatever that is. And, we're never done, right? There's always stuff that's coming up, but it's easier over time. And it's right. You're so right. I mean, again, the similarities, I went through a horrific divorce 4 years ago. And, you know, I've spent, you know, better part of 4 years healing and working through stuff. And then all the childhood stuff came up and it's like, are you kidding me? Oh my God. But again, those big chunks releasing. And then the days that, you know, I'm in alignment with who I really am. You know, Joe Dispenza calls it, you know, your future self. You know, when I'm plugged into future Shauna, it's like, whoa, like unstoppable. It's just magic. And so then it becomes, I don't know if you find this, I'm like, okay, what else can I do to get connected into that? And how much longer can I stay in there? And because the more of the inner work that we do, then the quicker we can align with that and what lights us up and our joy and our heart. And just, you know, it's the magical part of living.
Absolutely. And in order to be a good medium, you have to live.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to have those lived experiences so your
Yep.
soul can acquire new knowledge, so you can also be more relatable to other people, so you can really get the most out of this physical life, this classroom of the earth. And there's never a point where we arrive. Doesn't matter. You can take a class, you can do a year of therapy, you can, you know, do your yoga, your meditation, all of that. Those things are amazing.
Yep.
But the more you learn and grow, you're constantly shifting. And, you know, I've had people say to me, "You've changed."
Yeah.
And I go, "Thank you." "What do you mean?" I said, "You're supposed to." That's the whole point of life, is growing and changing and evolving. And it's interesting because I'll look back and I look at my social circles over, let's say, the last 30 plus years. And I go, oh my gosh. And it's not that I don't care for those people and I want the best for them. And it's not that they're bad people, but you lose the commonality between each other, like the common things of interests, and your
Yep.
personalities are so different. And then it's almost like you become strangers.
Yes, it's true.
Right.
Yep.
And it's not to be afraid of doing the inner work, but it's, I actually, here's the thing my mom has always said to us. She said, Courtney, when I would be going through a tough time, which I did a lot in my 20s when I was unhappily married the first time, right?
Yep. Yep.
And she'd say, Courtney, ask yourself, do you want to live like this for the rest of your life? And literally one day I woke up and I was like, screw this. Pardon my language, but I was like, screw this. And I was like, I was done with the husband and the dog, and that was it.
Yep.
Like, peace out. And I started living life for me. Obviously, my kids too, but no, it was this discovery of self and go, wow. And when you can get to know who you are and be your own best friend and be comfortable in your own company, you are unshakable.
You're unstoppable. Exactly.
You're unstoppable. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, it's interesting is, you know, again, lately it's been, you know, about boundaries and about looking for that external validation. And it's like, you know, when you give that to yourself, you're not impacted as greatly by what's going on around you and what other people are choosing. And it's so true. You know, it's every now and again, I'll say to my guys, I'm like, yo, I need more ground crew, please. Like I need to up level. I need people that are going to up level with me. And now when a relationship shifts, it's like, ooh, now who's going to come in? Like it's, and again, I love that person. I bless them. I send them love. I want nothing but the best for them. And it's just like, maybe at some point they'll come back. And if they do, great. If they don't, that's okay. It's just like, ooh, now what are we going to get? This is kind of exciting. Whereas, you know, 10, 20 years ago, I would have been like, oh, did I do something wrong? And I would hang on to people. I'd be like, no. We'll hang on to you. And we're meant to stay together forever. And it was like, no, because we're always shifting and changing and growing. And yeah, I have absolutely loved our conversation today. Thank you so much. It's
Me too, Shauna.
It's always such a delight to chat with you, Courtney. Now, would you share with everybody, how can they find you? What do you have going on? You've got your podcast, website, events, all.
Yeah. Okay, so you can, first off, thank you for having me on the show. It's been so lovely to connect with you. To find out what I'm doing, you can go to my website, mediumcourtneydawson.com. I have a bunch of classes on there under my online school, the Connected Spirit Intuitive School of Mediumship and Development. You can check that out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Medium Courtney Dawson. I'm always on Instagram, so you can check me out there. I have some intuitive, psychic, and mediumship online circles throughout the summer, and I'm actually working on a couple of new courses that will be available just over the summer. And so you can check that out again by going to my website, mediumcourtneydawson.com. I have a new section on my website. It has a bunch of free resources. There are meditations, guidebooks, etc. I have an amazing newsletter that I'm going to say it kind of rocks. So it's called 111 Spirit, and each week I share a thought, an idea on how to connect to the spirit within, and then I share a spiritual tip or exercise, and then one thing that I'm loving that week, plus a whole bunch of other cool stuff in there. And I also offer a weekly spirit message to the group who subscribe to my newsletter. So all kinds of fun stuff on there. And you can always reach out to me through my website and on social.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And we'll have everything in the show notes so everyone can find you. Everyone
Sure.
can find you. Thank you so much. This has been awesome, amazing. I can't wait for everybody to hear all of your beautiful insights. And so again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shauna.